Well,
Ready?
I guess we're about as ready as we're gonna get. Before we get started, what's your first name, ma'am?
Deborah.
Deborah. I'm terrible with names, I apologize.
That's all right. I did not like you, so.
All right, so we will call this meeting to order. Run roll call real quick. Doug,
Here.
Leanne,
Here.
Steve, Rob here, Nick,
Here.
Cindy.
Here.
Okay, do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, a few things tonight. Deborah's here with GRW. We approved the UDO last meeting for to accept that and send it on to the town council, and we had a little conflict. We didn't something we need to do, so we've got to have a public hearing, and we're scheduling that for next month, so the public can have input before we send it on to the town council for their public hearing and approval. So we've got that scheduled for the February 2nd meeting is the public hearing. And that should get us going on that. Has anybody got any questions or anything about the UDO or where we're at with that? I think we've all pretty well been on board as to where we're headed with that to get that done. We are kind of trying to set out a little bit of a game plan for what things this year, what we'd like to look at. We've got some annexation things we'd like to do or like to try to push a little bit. Either down on 39 or even south on 0. I'm going to try to make some contacts with some of the landowners and see if we can get any more movement out of that. I don't know what we're going to do there, but it's just if anybody's got any ideas or wants to help me make those contacts, that's fine too. I know most of the landowners, but just as we want to move forward with that. I've had some conversations with James Penner about development of his property, and we're looking at, I'm trying to help him maybe locate some developers to maybe move him a little bit, maybe in some housing and some commercial development. And then I was going to try to reach out to Mike Woolard and talk to him a little bit to see if he's wanting to go any further with the development around the lake. Or what was it, Clayton Commons? That was the original development name back in the back corner. Was that what that was called?
That was where the
old
dump
what we thought
used
the
to
old dump
be,
was. Yeah.
so I don't know if that's why that stopped or...
Yeah, last I knew that was not what stopped it totally. The developer, there was, the issue was the developer wanted X number of homes in that to make it work, and because of some roadway green space type of thing, there was some kind of conflict about that. But at that time, that was the county in charge of that. So maybe just need to go back and review it. So, but I'll try to reach out to Mike and see what we can do there. I don't know of, has anybody got any ideas for the year? I mean, we're sitting here in January, good time to kind of think about what we've really got ahead of us. In talking to Doug, it looks like we're really maybe going to make some ground on the sewer issues this year, which I think will help us in the long run for development and sizing.
Our comprehensive plan is very
That's
much out of date.
Right.
When it was developed 13 years ago, they put in here that it would be updated and revised in 5 years.
And it was done
And it
in
has-
07?
Huh?
07? Oh, somewhere in there.
07 to 09,
Yeah.
kind of that area was when they were working on it. But yeah, they specifically wrote in their recommendations to update it and stuff in 5 years, and we haven't done that. There's also within the comprehensive plan was written in kind of this idea of making sure our comprehensive plan doesn't conflict with the surrounding comprehensive plan. So they had that we should have a liaison from this board to the Hendricks County Comprehensive, or the Planning Board for Hendricks County. So I don't know if there's anybody specifically who's interested in going to a meeting or two up in Danville up there when they have their planning meetings. Certainly that wouldn't require going to every meeting, but at least once a quarter, I would say, would be helpful to be apprised of what is the county doing in this area, and how will our comprehensive plan fit within that. We don't have to, ours doesn't have to reflect every aspect of their plan, but it shouldn't overtly conflict with their plan.
Looks like they meet on they're like us. They meet on the first Tuesday of each month at 7 p.m. So
There you go.
we may have to maybe make a field trip.
Well, maybe you just meet with their planning
yeah.
director once a month. and
Yeah,
get
we
the
could do
lowdown
that as
on
well.
What's going on, that might be faster.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'm wrong here. I'm reading this wrong. No, the Board of Health meets then, so that's a different. Says, I love these little websites. I'll see if I can find that. I'll find out because I thought they met in the middle of the day.
Their planning commission.
I thought their plan commission, I thought they met in the middle of the day, but I may be wrong.
Well, and like Deb said, we don't necessarily have to go to the meeting. We can.
Right.
Somebody can meet with their what do you say, the commissioner?
Rod Lasley's,
Planning director.
yeah, well,
Planning
yeah,
director.
they have a planning county, but Rod Lasley's their chairman of their board. If I'm reading this right. Oh, Sam Hemsel's on there. Okay. I know him
Looks
well.
like
Do you?
Yes, he's
All
one of
right.
my farmers, so,
Okay.
yeah. So
Perfect.
we may have some contact there. Okay. I'll see if I can nail down exactly when that is, and I'll touch base with Sam and find out, maybe he can get us a copy of we can get a copy of their current plan, and see what we can do there.
And everybody here still has a copy of our current comprehensive plan to be able to look through it. And I know I've marked mine up quite a bit with highlighter and notes and stuff on some things that could be helpful to update. There's a survey in the comprehensive plan that they did. They sent out a survey to all the residents in Clayton, property owners, so on and so forth. And we can repeat that survey. I've already typed it up all into a Survey Monkey
Okay.
kind of thing, so we can send out information to people in town to go on to Survey Monkey and do this survey for us
Sure.
for a comprehensive plan. when we first talked about that, we weren't ready for that, so I haven't put it out there, but it's all typed in SurveyMonkey, ready to go. So whenever we wanna do that, we can.
I think that might be a good idea, maybe just to get an idea of a feel for if there's anybody out there even willing.
And I just used the same questions that they used, back, when they did this one, so, which they have, I think it was 25 specific questions in the survey about what kinds of things you wanna see in town, what's your biggest,
Yes, yeah.
The
Most,
what?
that
Does
survey,
that survey, like we would send
that
out,
one
send
did it, yeah.
Will it have an open comment section? I mean.
yeah,
that
the
way-
SurveyMonkey
That
one
way
has.
you get a feel, like you can get an actual, yeah, they take the survey and answer the questions, but sometimes the questions don't really reflect
What they're,
what their thoughts as citizens would be for the town.
Oh, I guess it's a lot more than 20. It was 52 questions. And some of them are ratings from very satisfied to satisfied. Some of them are, things like, do you think Clayton needs a water service? Do you believe an increase in the size of Clayton would benefit the community? And so on and so forth. So, and then there were some open-ended questions. What kind of business would you like to see? What improvements would you like to see? There were demographic questions, how long have you lived here? What's your gross family income kind of thing? Do you work close to Clayton or far away? That kind of stuff. So I thought it's a pretty comprehensive survey for, getting a picture of what kinds of things residents are feeling about the town currently and what they'd like to see in the future. And SurveyMonkey is just one possible route. We can also, print this out in a hard copy and mail it.
We might need
If we need to do that.
because of people might not have internet access or.
I know
Elderly people in the community that maybe don't have computers or smartphones.
well, and like for this survey, I believe I remember seeing, they sent out a survey to everybody that gets a sewer bill,
yeah.
and we got 100 back. We send out 778 sewer bills every month. So we got 100 back from that. I know this last summer we did a survey about this meeting room, and we got, what was it, like 27 responses from our Facebook page. So,
Yeah, it doesn't,
Well, you gotta catch people's attention. Maybe 52 questions might be too much for them. You might need to sit down and decide the most important.
the worst part is I think you get so many people that this is just, I'm coming home, I'm gonna go home, pay my little bills, and I go about my life. I mean, I hate to say that, but there's a lot of people that just don't,
yeah,
they just don't care.
I don't think anybody ever expects 100% response on a survey.
No, it's,
So,
yeah, I
we
mean,
just aren't going to get that.
well, I remember when we sent that out and we felt really, I think we were using Keezers at that time, but he was like, oh, you got 100 back out of 700, you did good. They were expecting like maybe 10% tops, so.
So how much information do you have to provide? What are the parameters in which we have to compile and comply with in order to move this forward? Because I'm just curious about the workings of, small government entities, if you will. If you have to provide the information, if you have to provide a forum, if you have that little of a response, then what is the mandate for us as a committee to say we have now, done due diligence and we can move on to the next phase? You were given this opportunity, it was provided for you, you didn't comply, we have an agenda. Because nothing's ever gonna get.
Usually that amounts to public hearings. I think that's the biggest thing that is we are required to have public hearings before we make major changes.
So if you provide the information via the mail,
Right.
and that supersedes any need for anyone who does not have internet or does not have a smartphone, so you've crossed that T, and then you set up a time period for when that public forum is available, and let's say, to cover bases, you provide 2 dates, just say that. Then are you done? Then does that check that box, so then you can say, this was offered to the citizens, and I'm not trying to be
No, I
hard-nosed,
fully
I'm just
understand what
saying,
you're saying.
when does it ever become
When does
something
it stop?
that you can go, we're done with this?
Yeah.
We're moving
Right.
on to the next thing.
Depending on what you're working on.
Yeah, it
Because
depends
what
on
we're
how,
talking
I think a lot of it
about-
has to do with how much money we're gonna spend.
Well, a lot
And-
of it has
and-
to do with that survey there is just to get a direction of what the citizens want or expecting out of us as a committee. Like, what direction do you want the town to go? Do you wanna build all these new houses, or do you wanna put all these new warehouses in or businesses in?
Mhm.
I think that's what that survey is what that's for. Now, what we're talking about, like here for these special exceptions and stuff like
Yeah.
that, there's a legal process to go by that for
Right.
people to argue the fact that, like, we went through them when we first started the doubles. Those are 2 different things. That's just a survey to give us an idea of what the town is expecting whoever responds. Now, that doesn't mean we have to take it fully into consideration, but we should, because it's the county.
Oh, yeah,
You know what I mean? Cause
Yeah.
it's just a
Should represent the people who
survey,
live here
right?
and the people
We're
who
just
work
seeing,
here.
we're reaching out to the town to see what they would like.
Usually for that comprehensive plan update, you would also introduce a steering committee that is made up of, maybe some business owners, some farmers, some property owners, business people that have their businesses and things like that, that are a representation of the county or the
Right.
town,
Right.
so that they kind of drive that process and guide you on top of doing your surveys and everything.
That's
Okay.
most of the business owners already sitting.
We're already sitting here. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of
You
us
know, there's a
are.
couple that aren't here, but there's not very many.
Yeah,
I'm sure there might be, you never know.
yeah.
I was surprised. I mean, there are a lot of businesses that show that they have a Clayton address, and I know, like the gun shop owner, and
Yeah, there's.
we have a taxidermy place. We have, an excavating place here on Kentucky. We also
Yeah.
have
We're on
Anthony's. We have
when you go
we have some in-home businesses that I'm sure we're not all aware of, but.
Yeah. I just wonder, cause there are a lot of properties, rental properties here
Yeah,
in Clayton. You would think, other than the gentleman who comes often, and forgive me, I've forgotten his name, I think it's Dwayne. He's here, but there are other people who own rental properties here in the Clayton area, and they never show up. And I would think that they'd want to, because it definitely affects their, potential for rent. It can affect that amount that they can receive, it can raise it or lower it, it can affect their property value. I just don't ever see anybody at the meetings.
I was surprised that the apartments sold. They have a new owner as of a couple of months ago,
I didn't
which
even know it sold.
it did. So they have a new management team, and
Are you talking about as you're leaving?
yeah, those
Countryside.
countryside
I'll be darned.
estates or whatever it's called.
Wow.
But they sold, and a new company is taking over, and
I think she inherited those, didn't she?
I don't know, but
Yeah, I think that was
Family
they've been
owned?
owned by the same family for quite a few
That's
years.
what I thought, yeah.
But I
she-
think that, I think he was getting elderly, and I don't think she really wanted to run it.
Okay.
I think that was kind of one of those things that become we just need to get rid of this. Yeah.
Cause I just remember years ago, if it's who I'm thinking of, she showed up at the meeting when Dwayne was proposing, developing a lot of rental properties, and then I never saw her again, so.
Yeah.
Speaking of
But-
businesses, the cafe.
so that whoever now owns the apartments is a business owner in town.
Right,
And
okay,
so, I mean, those are certainly things I've
yeah,
never been into the little massage studio over here, but that's another business owner in town.
Yeah, I don't know how much she's running out of there now or not. She was trying to sell all that and just keep it at
Yeah, the
Danville.
businesses, or the building is still for sale, but,
Yeah.
I still see, her
Cars
there
are-
from time to time.
Yeah,
okay.
So,
yeah. It's
the 3 churches count as a business in town, so those are,
and that's I would love to see them more active and just somebody from that to represent them at least at some of these. I would think, but it's hard. I know.
Well, if we got there, and
Yeah,
We had their input, maybe we could get back to doing a thing as a town, once all this lockdown stuff is over with.
right.
You know, like fall festival or something of that nature.
I also know that Deb with GRW can be very instrumental and very helpful with guiding us on our steps towards updating our comprehensive plan. So
Okay.
the handbook that Indiana Planning has, the guidebook,
The Citizen Planner's Guide?
right?
Yes.
They have chapter 7 is all on comprehensive plans.
Right.
Okay.
And it's very informative. I've read through it a couple of times and I still feel like, all right, I gotta read it again because there's a lot of stuff in there.
If you
But-
get real bored, I wrote the section on subdivisions, so.
Okay.
Excellent. Well, I did, one of the things that with kind of, a new leadership of this group, I read through the pitfalls section and that might be a good chapter for you. I think that's chapter 3.
Yeah.
One of the big things they said in the pitfalls section is communication. So don't be afraid to reach out to people for help on, again, more of, information about these things that you want to work on. And I know we didn't get as much accomplished with annexation that we wanted to the last time, and I feel like we could have gotten a bigger piece of that than what we did, but we can try again. So
Well, and we may be, I don't know, there have been several comments made to me by some of the landowners, they don't know why we stopped where we did.
right.
And
I
why
don't
did
know
we
why
not,
either.
why did we not go clear to 39, or clear to Belleville? Why did we not go clear to 150? Why did we stop where we did?
Well, some of them
You
really
can't
have.
go,
Yeah.
you can't,
Well,
you can
so-
only go out a percentage.
Well, and I understand it, and I talked to, I think it was some of the folks from it was Baker Tilly, about this 1/8 contiguous ruling. That's almost a very ambiguous method of calculation. I mean, because I sat down and if they volunteer to come in, it doesn't matter.
Right,
So, as we take a major landowner like Bob Brenneman that basically owns the next 800 acres to the east of us,
Oh, my goodness.
if he wanted in and he said, yeah, you can annex, but you gotta annex all of me, there's no reason why we can't do it.
uh-huh.
Okay.
I'm not saying that's what he wants, but I'm just saying that that would at least get us to Belleville. If we did, I always refer to it as the Golden Triangle for what they paid for the place. But the land between 39 and 40, all the way to Belleville,
Uh-huh.
it does a couple things. Number one, that gets us to water at the city limit. Now, granted, it is not the greatest water, it's not the greatest pressure system, but it is water for development. Once it's at our city limits, then if we want to attach onto it and develop, it gives us some ground to grow. I have talked to several friends of mine, well, Brad Butler, who was here earlier for the BZA meeting, he's a Pike fireman. And I asked him, because we've talked about water several times in this town. Nobody cares about water in this town because we have a really good water supply. If you punch a well in this ground, you're going to get water in this town. I mean, we have a good water supply. But the one thing we won't ever get is major development till we get water. So maybe from a water supply standpoint, we don't look at a water supply of the whole existing town as it is, but what we look at is a fire protection supply within the town,
Okay.
where we have a major fire hydrant at the fire station. We have a major fire hydrant somewhere down 39, somewhere in the old district of town over around Crawford or somewhere in there. Because in talking to Brad, if you're within 2 city blocks of a hydrant, the pumper will take care of the rest. So I'm just looking at it from an insurance standpoint, because if you have city water in your town, your insurance will drop to a class 2.
Really?
Fire protection, yes. It will save a ton on your fire protection insurance. And it's not as critical in your homes. That's a pretty small, if you talk to your insurance man and he breaks it down and goes, but when you own a business like he owns, or like I own, or the big buildings like you own, that's a big piece of your pie, fire protection insurance.
Yeah.
So if you have, and the other thing is full-time fire, which we are slowly, ever so slowly, getting closer to full-time fire,
Okay.
okay?
That is actually good to know because our insurance is killing us on basically buildings that are unusable right
Right.
now completely until we invest even more money in them.
Right,
But your
right.
insurance doesn't.
They don't care.
Right.
They've got to
We had
insure a
have
building.
Huge amount before they would even let us sign on, before we could even get another loan.
But those are some things that I think as a planning board, the fire protection is a big thing we need to help. You know, if we can come up with some way to help plan for those kinds of things as we're looking at our comprehensive plan, where would we, if we could get with the fire departments and maybe some engineering firm, where would we like to put fire protection hydrants in the town? That A, minimize the impact to our roads and streets as we have them, but utilize places for, because as I see it, the ideal place to run a header line is down the old railroad track. And I put a hydrant in the park, and I put a hydrant at the fire station, and I put a hydrant at the west edge where it comes through, and then I run something north through town, you know, to get up to the.
Well, I mean, my suggestion would be that we would follow any NFPA recommendations on
Right, but they don't.
hydrant placement.
But they don't lay that out by town.
Well, no, but they're going to state distance
Oh,
between
absolutely.
hydrants and you know, that which major intersections would you prioritize, that kind of stuff. So I think.
And I understand what you're saying, but what I'm saying is because in talking to Brad, and he's a pumper engineer. That's what he does. I mean, he hooks to the lines all the time in Pike Township. His comment to me is I need 2 to 5 city blocks. That's all I need. Clayton's not that big. You know, you look at 5 city blocks from 39 and we're past Reagan. You know, I'm probably past most of Gilbert Woods. You know, so that's all I'm saying is I'm sure we could get somebody to help us with that. I'm not,
Right.
but I'm saying from a comprehensive plan, if we could look at that as bringing water from Belleville slowly this way and do nothing more than fire protection for this town, that will help our development as we try to develop for homes and that kind of stuff.
Or if a big business wants to come in, McDonald's or something, especially if we have down there 140, which is perfect road frontage for a fast food restaurant, it's gonna come, and if we could get it annexed down there, and it's in the town of Clayton, it benefits the town versus the county type. And if the water's right there, and we've already, we have fire protection.
Well, my understanding is the water that's in Belleville comes from Plainfield.
It comes from, yes, it is.
So they would be.
No, it doesn't come out of tower. It comes out of the pumping station.
Right, that's what I meant,
At
Cartersburg.
Cartersburg, yeah.
So Plainfield would be able to dictate rates
Right.
to us if we took that water.
At the termination, yes,
Yeah.
yes. Because currently we can't.
Well, what I'm saying is if we just paid as a town, if the town could find it in the budget, or get a grant, whatever, to come off that line, just put fire protection in, then as it gets developed, you make the development help you cover the cost of putting an extra line into their fast food restaurant, to their new subdivision. So we don't have to put it completely solely on the citizens of this town that aren't using it. You know, I think that would be a good idea to have that up through there, and then we use the developers. They wanna develop, that's fine, but we can use them to help us run the water in what they're developing. Type thing, instead of trying to, if we explain that to the people of the town that way, so that way the person that, I have a well and I don't want water, will understand, like you just said, hey, fire protection works, So we're paying for your fire protection, that's what you're gonna help pay for. And as we develop it, the developer's gonna help us pay for that. And not
Every
your
time
tax
we've looked at
dollar,
water in this town, we scare everybody to death with saying, we're gonna put water through this town and you're gonna hook to it. I've seen it 3 times in 26 years. And nobody in this town wants water. They all wanna be on their wells. That's fine.
Yeah.
But if we look at it from a standpoint of fire protection,
My next door neighbor wants water, and wants the city to provide water.
Yeah, and see, if we had that there,
I'm like-
and they could afford to pay the hookup.
They have a perfectly good one.
no, I know, but that's one out of
Right.
700 and,
I
you
just,
know.
she told me that, I just shook my head, I was like, what?
Well, yeah, I mean,
Why?
we have, as far as I know, within the aquifer of this town, just knowing Eli English, who, does a lot of well work around here, and talking to we have one pocket of sulfur tasting water, and it's in Gilbert Woods, and because Brad Butler's got it. They don't drink the water out of their well. they buy bottled water, and because of the sulfur in it. But that's the only pocket I know of.
Our water's pretty horrible.
There, really?
In our, I'm sorry, I get turned around. In our building,
Yes.
the white building.
You're right.
I haven't tasted it in any of the other buildings, but I know when we finished our store here on the north end, and I washed my hands, there was no smell. I mean, it was a brand new water heater and everything, and we've hired Eli. We just hired him again.
Right.
He's done a lot of work for us. And we've also had Kevin, and I'm sorry I don't know his last name, but we've had a few guys help us out, and Kevin said that it's our tank, that it's a tank, and so if that's the case, we can replace it. I mean, it's so horrible that it gags you, like
Smell?
the smell is horrendous.
Rotten eggs?
Rotten eggs.
That's
and-
sulfur.
Yeah, and it's,
And it
I've
can
been
be in
a
the
hurry
tank,
for
but that's,
work, and I've rinsed my mouth out, I didn't have any bottled water, rinsed my mouth out, and I
Plus.
sink in the bathroom and
Have
almost threw up,
Have you,
so.
Yeah.
yeah. But those are things that I see as if we could put this into this comprehensive plan, the things we're trying to look for, that we don't, I don't wanna scare the people that say, cause I seen the numbers on the water project numbers I've seen in the last 3 times we've looked at, we went from 3.5 million to 5.5 million to 10.2 million was the last one I think we seen.
Wow.
And I know numbers go up, and I
Question
get,
45 on the survey is, do you think Clayton needs water service?
right,
So, it's
right.
in there.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people, that the minute they say that is they think, oh, they're gonna make me hook to city water,
Yeah,
so maybe change that question. Do you think we need city water for A, your house, B, for fire
that's a
protection?
good idea,
And that way it gives you a choice, and it can break it down, cause maybe they want the fire protection,
right.
they don't want it for their house, or they want it for their house, and they don't care about fire protection. I don't
Well,
know,
look at
care
there.
about fire protection, but most people don't think about it.
No, they don't.
James Penner was on the steering committee. For
yeah, he was,
And then, just out of curiosity, because we're on the fire department. So, I mean, I know it's not really up to us, but we kind of plan things, I guess. If we get a full-time department, we're gonna have to get them a bigger building in this town at some point in time, especially.
it won't be in this town.
It won't be, even
I
if
don't-
we annex
I
it to
don't-
Belleville or something.
If we annex to Belleville, we might be able, but based on what the preliminary conversations I've had with Ron Myers, is it will be placed somewhere on 39, around 40.
Yeah, which
Wow.
goes with the whole development deal that they wanted to do originally. The developers that were trying to develop the
Right.
Hall property. The way I understand it, the way I read it that time was a few years ago, they were going to put a building in, and then they just had to sap it. But I guess all that got stopped with whatever else. was
Well,
going on.
Johnson & Johnson had offered to build them a building,
Okay, I knew it was something along
Yeah.
those lines.
and but they turned it down. So. that
Well, I
was-
know with the town council giving them a budget as sizable as we give them, I don't think they can just like haphazardly say, we're pulling out of town.
I don't think that's what they're looking at doing, but
Right,
I
I'm
think
just
what they're
saying,
looking is a full-time.
We're gonna have a voice.
Right.
Yes,
As a
I was
town
just
council
saying, if
here
we're gonna
saying,
plan stuff-
I don't think, we don't want you building a building outside of town
No, I'd rather
to have a fire station. We
Well,
want a
but
fire
the problem is
station
if
in
they declare us a territory, we may not have any choice in that. because it's a territory, we're gonna get taxed for it whether you're in town or out not. The whole district, the whole township will get hit for it.
With money rights, yes.
Right, that's what I'm
But
saying.
the territory also has control through both entities. So the town council gets to make part of the decisions on where they
They'll
go.
have a member on that board.
Right,
Yeah,
So
it's a
it's-
7-member board.
yeah, it doesn't, none of that stuff goes away.
I understand, and I understand what you're saying, but the other side of that is there, as taking that on as a territory, as a district, and making that, and this is my understanding only, and I can be all wrong, but my understanding, the conversations I've had with some people that have done this at Pittsburgh and other places is, as a town, we become less of an entity unless we're willing to put our own staff in, okay? Because the taxing district goes against the whole district, and so they look at central supply to the whole district and the need of the district.
Which it does now. I mean, their number one response place
Is
is the warehouses
Right.
at 70. So
Right.
they don't respond in town near as much.
Right.
However, they like this station over the Hazelwood station, so they stay here.
No, and that's what I'm
Because
saying.
we've been willing to, accommodate their station with
What I was just trying to
improved
get at
bunk
was,
rooms and staff.
Right.
if we're gonna lay out a plan, just a general 10-year plan or something, whether they have to move it down to Cartersburg Road or somewhere, different. I think we ought to include in that plan that we know that we're going to try to develop this town, and if we get it annexed down to Belleville, let's just say, for instance, we're gonna put in a lot of homes, so they're gonna have to have more than just one ambulance and one medic truck and one fire truck, because the district is so big. So therefore, we're gonna have to, maybe we ought to just have a preliminary plan, just say, hey, okay, so if we do get this annexed, this will be an area that we could put a police and a fire station together and have a nice big, big building for them, because they're gonna have it. Whether they use it or not, we could at least plan for it, kinda like the county did on 40 and went and overlaid everybody's property, commercial overlay over the residential, so that way if somebody ever wanted to go in there and develop it, it was already overlaid with the zoning so they could develop it. So if we just had it in our plan that we're working on, hey, this might be the area that we would wanna put a new station right here. It's already in the idea, so if we're not sitting here in 8 years or whatever, 10 years, they have that to look at and they go, okay, man, them guys really had an idea of what, that was the land use. And we, cause you got the area for the sewer plant, well, you're not gonna build a house right next to the sewer plant.
No.
You're not gonna wanna put houses right next to warehouses and stuff, like they used to do in the old days, like our little business group right down there, we built houses right around it. Well, if we put in that plan book, just, a little area that we would designate, hey, we'd like to do this, then it would be there for people to look at, is what I was kinda getting at. Whether they use it or not, and if they don't use it, then we readjust and develop it. It was just a thought I had. We're talking about.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
Because we're
a
gonna-
comprehensive plan is nice because you can make it cover all aspects of things, like what you're talking about. And so it would certainly be a helpful issue. I like that our comprehensive plan has capital improvement things mentioned in it, because I think we need capital improvement going on here in Clayton, and that can start kind of get that going again, because we haven't been doing that. So hopefully we can keep this on our top priority of to-do list for the year.
What if we took,
Yeah.
what if we just plan on taking a section of that every month and just kinda doing a review of it? 15-20 minutes. Get everybody's input. We'll just go through next month, after we've done our actual business that we need to accomplish, we'll do some, just review of some of these items, to just get everybody's mind thinking that way,
Sure.
if that makes sense.
We could have one book that we write the things down in that is the main copy, so that way when we give it to.
Well, and some
give it
of
to
them,
her or whoever the company we give it to write it up,
Right.
to make it all legal or whatever.
Pretty.
understandable.
Look,
Understandable, yes.
Then they can, as they go through it page by page, you can look at it and say, okay, well, this doesn't fit what we need, or we need to add this to this section. And it's already there, so that way, as we review it over the year, or however long it takes us to get through that thing,
Well, and some of
we
it
know
is gonna have to
go
be
back and
updated
look.
before we do that, because like chapter 4 is socioeconomic. What is, and they used the 2000 survey for that information. Well, now we have a 2020 survey
Right.
of census, so we could update it with
But
that
that's what
kind
I'm
of
saying,
stuff.
we can, if we took a
That's-
section of that and just went through and updated those items,
Sure.
there's gonna be some simple things to update, there's gonna be some other things that we may have to think about, or,
Right.
But if we can at least start that and make some progress, section by section, and we may not get through a whole section one night, and but if we could spend 20 minutes or a half hour of doing that,
Yeah.
and just trying to go through that and keeping that moving, and then if we need to bring in some outside input, we're at least started down a path of, before we go trying to because finding a steering committee is like herding cats. I mean, I was on one of the first ones, and this was a big meeting. I hate to say that, but until
Right.
we got down to the final thing of, are we gonna do this, then the place had like 50 people in it.
Yeah.
But it was just hard to find anyone that wanted to come in and give us their input.
Pretty standard.
And I get that, but it's just, if we could kind of step through this section by section, be a little ahead of the game.
Sure. And, we can certainly, maybe pick on some of the people that are listed
From the last time.
from the last ones. I mean, they've signed in on the steering committee paperwork here. So, of course, I recognize James Penner's name. Is it David Powell?
David doesn't live here anymore, he's in Arizona. He was actually on the town council.
Brian Russell
He's
the
back in
assistant
town,
chief
he's now assistant chief,
of the fire department.
right?
Hudson, Robert Hudson?
Bob Hudson, he doesn't live in town anymore, he
Okay.
used to own the liquor store.
Betty
Hoop,
Hoop.
that used to own the cafe, Steve and
Okay.
Betty.
So those are
Yeah.
5 names on the steering committee from January 17th of 2007.
Mhm.
So those are, and then we, obviously we can put out a call for, hey, who wants to be on a steering committee? Jan Gibbs? Gibbs is a name I'm familiar here. There's Gibbs.
Oh, it's probably
They're still in town.
Debbie, you say who was it?
Looks like Jan, but it could, I don't.
It's probably Debbie, because she was on that committee,
Okay.
yeah. I don't
Could
know
be.
if Jan Gibbs, that doesn't,
It might not be Jan,
yeah. Who knows, right, I understand.
maybe this will help.
I have to take mine off to read, you have to put yours on.
Zach.
Boy, that's a name I don't recognize.
Okay.
Doesn't mean that's not a name I recognize.
All right. So anyway, those are some things we can work on. And like I said, Deb is going to be at our town council meeting on the 14th and is going to kind of make a proposal about being involved in helping with the planning and building stuff while we're without a town manager, since the town manager typically did the research and stuff for the applications or helped us with points of finding a fact. That's what it's called, finding a fact. And if we need to issue a building permit for these doubles that are being proposed, we need to know that we're doing it the right way. So Deb will be able to help with that. So she's gonna bring a proposal to the town to say that she'll help. There's an hourly
Sure.
cost for
Sure,
that,
absolutely.
for her time and stuff, so.
But I only work when there's stuff to do, so that's
No,
kind
and
of the
there's nothing
beauty
wrong
of
with
it.
that, yeah.
There you go.
Right.
But she can also help us with when we talked about doing the UDO and the comprehensive plan, they gave us price quotes for both. We could ask for another price quote for the helping with the comprehensive plan, but
Yep.
they can,
Now, on that UDO, I think we had talked about a 3-phase process, and this is the first phase. You don't have to go further, but the next phase would be to kind of reorganize a lot of the text, make it a little more user-friendly. And then the third phase would be to make it more graphically formatted. So it's just basically what we have now is really good because it's up to date with the state statute, and you're all legal, you shouldn't have any legal vulnerability now. And so then the next phase would just kind of be polishing it, making it even better and easier for everyone to use.
we wanted to put it on our website also. Just upload the whole UDO,
Yep,
have it in a
PDF,
searchable
yep.
PDF kind of a thing where they could also print out their applications for building permits or rezoning or however we
That's
want.
part of our deliverables to you already.
Okay.
So that's built.
Excellent. So that'll be helpful.
I had a question. Oh, we had talked before about what we do with the monies for the permits and stuff coming back to the planning board. Has there been any talk on the council about how we're gonna do that, or?
Yeah, there hasn't been, and part of that was the president of this group needed to present a
Present
request
that
to
to-
the town
okay.
council saying, we want this,
Yeah, okay,
XYZ.
okay,
So, I guess that's
that, yeah.
kind of back on you now,
Yeah,
is
exactly.
come to the
Yeah.
next town council
Town council,
meeting
yeah.
and say, as the planning and zoning
President.
board president, we want to be self-funded. We want to start growing a fund, so we're requesting that anytime, like Dwayne Lane paid us $875 to get this application turned in.
Right.
And so where does that money go?
Yes.
Well, right now, it goes into just the town general fund.
General fund.
So what you're wanting is to ask the town council to establish an account that is, this money is now gonna go into planning and zoning.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so in the future, when planning and zoning wants to spend money on something, it's there.
Right.
We can send out certified letters to people if we do the.
Well, and
Absolutely.
it also is, as we,
pamphlets, whatever.
as we come into things, that account builds and things build, if we need to update this book, we can pay for those things.
Well, not really, cause it's gonna be $30,000, but
Oh, well, okay.
that, you can, yeah, that's
When
great.
we need to change
You
the
can
light
work-
bulb in the front door.
You can work towards that.
Yeah,
So you're going to, establish. You're gonna just ask, can we establish this fund? So then the town council would have to vote on that, and then I don't know. Would that have to be an ordinance for our budget to create a new budget account, or?
I'm not sure how that all works. Usually all the
I think it
permit
has to
fees
be.
go into the general fund, but then there's a department or a unit line item that is given a certain amount of money each year to operate from.
So we
And-
can create that new line item for this.
Right, for your planning and building department. But then, obviously, as you're getting more activity and more fees coming in, that's how you can justify raising that budget line item over time. I haven't seen, there's only been a couple of departments I'm aware of that operate where all their permit fees go straight into the planning and zoning account, and they're not gone through the general fund. And one community got in a little bit of trouble with the State Board of Accounts on how they operated. They had a building inspector who set up his own fees for building permits, and he just pocketed the money and said,
Oh, well, that,
"Uh,
okay, yeah, okay.
that's covering my
I'm going,
fees."
I'm trying to figure out, well, if it comes in here and Jenny puts it in the account, how can we screw that up? But that'll screw it up.
There's
Yeah,
another
you
community,
Make that
Carroll-
check out to Doug Big
Yeah.
now.
Carroll County, Indiana actually has a tax line item so that, to fund their planning department, so they're collecting that through the tax base as well as their permit fees, so.
Well,
So, yeah.
I agree with anything that will create a little bit of a fund for us, only because it's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, I've been told that that money that isn't used by our town, our own little entity, goes back into the state. So if we do have anything extra, we just flood it back into Indiana instead of rebuilding it back into Clayton. Is that at the end of the year, is that how it's allocated by Jenny or by the committee? I don't know, I don't go to those meetings anymore, but that would be something great for us to start putting back into Clayton.
Well, our cash balance in our bank right now is a little over $700,000, and we don't get that much from the county every
Okay,
year. So we've built up a little surplus ourselves, and it's because we don't spend every last cent every year.
okay,
So I don't think that's true that all of that money just goes away someplace else.
well, that's,
We've built up a nice little cushion in our bank account. It's not gigantic by any means. I know like the state of Indiana has something like a $2.5 billion surplus right now. We're not anywhere near that yet, but I don't think
okay, that's good to know.
we lose it necessarily. What I think does happen though is whoever Jenny goes to for permission to have a number in our budget, if we don't use it one year, they are very tempted to say, you didn't need that much last time, so we're not going to give you as much this time. So that's why I know when I worked for Indianapolis Fire Department, like somewhere late November, the chief would come into our office and say, look, we have $80,000 left to spend. And one year we bought, 500 long spine backboards.
Yeah,
And they're sitting in a storeroom
yeah.
down on south,
Yeah.
by the wastewater treatment plant off of Belmont. Anyway, I'm like, we would just spend money at the end of the year because we didn't want to lose it. We didn't want to have the city tell us the next year, oh, no, we're going to reduce this by this much because you didn't spend it. And so that's, some of what we might be able
Okay,
to see accomplish is we work on establishing our own fee, our own budget line,
Right.
and we're putting money into that the powers that be who tell us what our budget can be, they start saying, oh, okay, well now you've established this new group that's trying to be self-sufficient and using their money for things, whatever.
Well,
Planning and zoning.
I've been a department head, and when I've prepared my budget, I've said, this much money's going for this, paper, pens, things like that. Need some money for furniture, I need some money for this. And then at the end of the year, if I didn't spend it all, I would justify, well, I didn't buy a new desk because I didn't hire a secretary, but next year I will be hiring a secretary, I'm still gonna need the money for that desk. So if we can carry that over or something.
So now let me ask you, what does planning and zoning spend money on? Like what would we need our own account for?
Sure, well, your salaries and everything come out of a separate budgeting line item for the town. Things you would need is maybe a printing budget, if you have a webmaster to maintain your website and keep things up to date. If you have somebody answering phone calls, if you have any equipment, just anything that you would pay for, to run the show, if you will, that's what it would go for. So if you plan on, maybe hiring a planning director in addition to, a town manager someday, you'd wanna make sure they have office space, they have office furniture, they're gonna need a printer, they're gonna need a phone, they're gonna need a laptop, and so just everything you would need to set that up.
With like paying for our public notice in the Republican, that would
Yep,
also be that
yep,
same
public
kind of
notice
thing.
things, publications,
Models.
and maybe even a legal line
Mhm.
item if things get really crazy or something.
Okay. Very good.
And sometimes they even have an education component, you know, if you wanna make sure your staff gets training or they need training, you would include that as well. So,
All right.
Rewinding a little bit, cause I was looking at the boards, she was talking about the budget, and I was thinking about models and the things there. The last go around on the annexation, I had talked about getting something, the pros and the cons together for annexation for people to kind of put them at ease. So so they don't feel like, cause I got the impression that some of the people were like, well, why don't I have to be annexed? Why do I need to be annexed? What's in it for me? I just don't feel like their questions got answered fully, where they felt comfortable to understand the difference of if they're in the town of Clayton, they can come to this meeting, they can listen to us, we're a smaller group, we understand we understand their voice has more weight or whatever. Are we still gonna maybe look into doing something like that for this next go around?
I think that's another
What's
meeting's
your guys'
definitely,
input on it, I guess?
I think another meeting's definitely, warranted with those parties involved, that express some interest. We've had 2 property owner changes down 0. The one farm was sold, or the one 5-acre tract was sold. New property owners on that one. Then there was another house on the east or the west side that was sold. So we've got a few new players there, but the major players, the Macris, Brennemans, and I think those are probably our biggest opportunities.
Yeah.
So
Like when Mr. Macri kept asking, he's like, he just, why should I, I remember him, I don't remember exactly how he worded it, but it was basically, what good does it do to me to annex? Why do I want to annex?
it doesn't,
basically.
yeah.
And I don't think, I guess I look at it like when I'm trying to explain why a person needs the repair on their car, even though their car is not acting up currently, I'm trying to get a person that doesn't understand mechanics to understand mechanics so it can get their car fixed so it
He's
won't
talking about
be
me.
No, I'm just looking at it. I'm just saying, that's why I looked at it, that's why I suggested maybe we get a pamphlet together, or just a single sheet, whatever it takes. I really don't know what to write down, because I'm a simple person. I would just say, well, you get to deal with the local zoning guy, and you don't have to deal with the county zoning, because I've had to deal with them, they're not fun.
you might check with the, AIM, Accelerate Indiana Municipalities, they probably have a handout already prepped that you could use.
Okay. Yeah, I was just
They have
thinking, because
resources.
we had a few people ask us why, like Mr. Macri kept saying, well, why do I want to annex? And from what I took away from that meeting, I still remember Dan going, well, you don't want to be part of Plainfield. To me, that's not a good enough answer.
Yeah.
Because in his mind, Plainfield's too far away. For a guy that's not really paying like his property, Plainfield's going to stop at 39, and it's going to be a long time before they go past 39, go west of 39.
Right.
Their goal,
I give
from
it
the way
5
I
years.
understand it, is
I give it 5 years.
they want to
Yeah.
get to 39.
I'm willing to put money on 5 years. They'll be at 39.
If they can do it legally, yeah, they will. If they can get through the landowners, get people to
And they-
voluntarily do it to get through the properties they need to get through, they will.
I mean, aren't they to Miles Road already?
Yes, but they got 750 acres and a guy by the name of Owen Hack to deal with, and sometimes that's easier to deal
I
with
just
a
like
rock.
that name, Owen High. Alright.
I can tell you, as somebody who had to deal with Brownsburg's town hall and Hendricks to get things done when my husband and I owned our restaurant, we lived in Brownsburg. I'm gonna tell you, this is head and shoulders over anything you will have to deal with, and I don't mean that to offend anybody.
No,
I
it
know
is,
people who work at the, you know, at the courthouse, I love them to death, I'm just saying, what you said is key.
It is,
For
because
us
they
to
have,
keep our own little entity is crucial.
they have an outlook and from a guy who tried to put a business in the county that didn't quite fit their little brick and mortar store. You know, there's nothing wrong with those stores, but brick and mortars, little shops don't fund everything. You gotta have repair shops, you gotta have services, you know, things, and after looking at all the properties I had looked at, and it met every zoning requirement, but then when I bring property number 2, and then by the time it was property number 16, boy, I had a 10-page book that was all these zoning requirements, and it was still a no. And it's like, no, we started out, and it was just this. And they're like, oh no, they kept pulling more zoning little regulations out. And then when you come here to the town, you're dealing, you know, like Dan, he kind of understood the zoning. He had to. It was just, you know, finally he
Very
learned
well, yes.
things to be able to handle it. But when I first came to the town, it was, I said, I want to talk to your zoning guy because I already knew the spiel. I need to talk to your zoning guy. Well, at the time, Dan wasn't full-time or nothing, so it was, we need to come to town council meeting. And I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
Wasn't necessarily the right way that they handled it, because some things were said that they were gonna do, and they backed out a year and a half later, and things got changed. But the point being is I'm here in business, been here a long time, because they looked at a piece of property that was already, had been a repair shop, body repair shop, and they said, boy, it'd be great to have a business here. Instead of looking at it going, well, you know, we know it's been a repair shop for the last 50 years, but man, it just doesn't have enough trees and shrubs and mounds around it, and it doesn't have a wainscot. And you know, those cars don't really look good, so they don't really fit the criteria, and you're all the way out in Stylesville or something,
Yeah.
where it doesn't affect anybody. You're not trying to build it right in the center of Danville or something, or the center of a town that they have control of. It doesn't make sense to me. I guess when a person has to deal with that, they remember that.
See, that's your personal story. You need to write that down and
Yeah,
tell these people, this is my personal story. I fought tooth and nail, 16 different applications with the county, and they said no.
Yeah.
I came here to Clayton, they said, yeah, there's an empty building right there, just go put your sign
I
out.
had to get approval before we bought it, because we weren't gonna buy it if
Right.
we couldn't put a business in. What's
But
the
that's
point?
your experience. You
Yeah.
had this
But I mean, that's what I'm
horrifying experience with the county, and you came here and said, I got to put my sign up.
So
I got to do my business the way I wanted to
saying.
do it.
That's
So
why I was
create
saying
that
we need to have
platform
like
where
a
we can
pros
talk to
and a
the
cons
town,
list.
yes.
So that way when Mr. Macri, or if it's not Mr. Macri, Mr. Brennan, or even if it's just a single homeowner down here on Zero, whether they have 5,000 acres, 500 acres, or 50 acres, or 5 or a half. If they say, what does it benefit me to be in your town? Because some people were afraid, well, the taxes. And that's all, because they hear these horror stories
That's
on
all
the news.
they
The news feeds these things, like, let's say, when Greenwood would annex towards, you know, New Whiteland or something, when they're granted, they're going, man, I gotta pay Greenwood tax.
Yeah.
Well, we're not Greenwood, you know. So, yeah, there probably are some taxes that you're gonna pay, but it's pennies compared to
Yes.
what you're thinking. But your benefit is so much better, because now, you know, you're in this town, and they can come to this meeting and they can say, I don't like what you're doing, or I do like what you're doing, and they just, you know, it has more input. And I think if we could, somebody a little more articulate than me.
No, you did
It
well.
doesn't need to be more articulate. You have just told your experience and convinced everybody in this room.
Yeah.
Dealing with the county on this would be a nightmare.
It
Dealing
is.
with our town is gonna be better.
But how do you say that to a person that doesn't want to build? Say they're just a homeowner, like one of the houses on Zero, they're just a homeowner. They don't care about building, they don't care about adding, they're not gonna add a back patio or a,
But
You know what I
Plainfield
mean?
just takes, I hate to say, I love Plainfield, I'm just saying.
well, they're growing.
We know
They're-
some business owners
They
over
have,
there.
they have the.
And when they decide they want something, they just go get it. They
But
just
see,
take
they
your
have the
building.
town people that have the vision, or have had the vision for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, whatever it's been, to grow their town and not be a stagnant, stalling town, which is good for them,
Yeah.
and they know how to work through that. I don't. I don't understand the inner workings of government, I don't understand why certain things get done, certain things don't, but I think if we could present that to people as it would help them as much as it helps the town grow, because let's face it, if we can annex, it really helps the town. Because if Plainfield does annex, or even if Danville was annexed in South, I doubt that they will, but if they were annexing all the way down right onto us and we had ground that we could annex like up around the lake, but they annexed it first, then how does the town will eventually die? You're not going to develop Clayton if we don't get ground to develop,
No,
basically.
you nailed it, that's exactly right.
I think we've gotta kind of look at that, it's like a business, you gotta
And
kind of
don't say
figure out.
Danville's not coming south, cause they are.
I don't know if they are.
No, they are.
I don't know how pushy they are compared to using, because we're always saying, look at Plainfield, for example, I'm just trying to be.
Danville's kind of the sleeping bear that nobody's watching, but
Amen to that.
they're coming.
Yes.
Well, they ain't developed much.
I worked in Danville.
they're
Yes,
coming
they
this
are.
way. They're making plans.
Because it's a beautiful little area. I mean,
It's a
it's,
nice
there's a
town.
lot of buildings that need to
Yeah.
be taken care of, a lot of buildings that are
Every town's
falling
got
apart
those.
and all of that.
I mean,
and-
you know, look at Indianapolis, they're still trying to
It's
take
a
care of
beautiful
things, you know,
area.
old buildings, but
Yeah.
I think if,
Oh, I think we've gotta try to figure out how to promote some growth.
right,
We've got some landowners that aren't gonna want the growth, but at least we can at least establish it as town city limits till the seasons pass, you know, and that changes.
And it might sound like cold-hearted, I guess, but not every annexation has to be voluntary.
no, it does.
There are ways to
But
go
we need
about
to
getting
consider that.
annexations done
Yeah.
because it's the best interest of the town
And Dan did
as a
talk about
whole,
it, and that's true, I agree with you.
and we just have to do it. And that's, I mean, I think that we had that opportunity last year and we didn't because people were afraid of what it would look like to do some of these non-voluntary. But as long as we had greater than 50% that was voluntary, we were within our legal right to proceed forward.
But I don't think we had that 50%.
Yeah, and I think part of it was too, is just wasn't.
I mean, I didn't see the
They see the
50%.
board and it just wasn't explained, I got the impression it just wasn't, cause I'm trying to look at it from a person that doesn't understand anything, again, back to my analogy about a car, if you don't understand about a car, you got a guy trying to, you know, everybody always says, well, the dealership's trying to rip me off. Okay, there are some dealerships that do that, and some garages that do that, and some retail stores that do that, but the point is that mechanic's telling you need it for a reason to make it beneficial to you, and I just don't think it got expressed, and I understand, so if we have 98% and you got one little tiny half acre, yeah, okay, we can, you know, we need to go our legal action and work like that, but I think that we should really
Well, I
put
think-
something together.
Yeah. No, I agree, and we can work on
Yeah,
annexation.
I was just curious if that was a good idea or not to do that. I had mentioned that, I don't know. And like I said last year, trying to learn how things work.
Me too.
I'm used to just making decisions and making things work down there, so I'm trying not to bring that here. I'm trying to learn what you guys are
I
doing.
think, Nick, I think you need to put it on paper, your experience with your shop and what you went through. And that will have 90% of all the pros and cons we want to be able to explain to these people. Regardless of whether somebody's gonna build or not, when they're inside of our town, they're dealing with much less red tape than the county.
Right, yeah, we still have rules, but it's easier to
trust-
understand the rules, cause they can come to us as a council, they can go to the zoning person, town manager, zoning person,
Yeah.
and get it more easily answered.
Well, if you're only
Answer.
dealing with one person and applying for permits and stuff, the odds of getting things
Yes.
mixed up and messed up are a lot slower, or a lot less.
I mean, Jeff and I didn't have to come to Clayton to buy a property for a business that he actually started out of our detached garage, real close to here, Stylesville. I mean, we're just off of 350. We looked at all kinds of surrounding areas. We chose Clayton specifically because it's its own little entity, and we would not have to deal with Hendricks County because of our past experience.
Sure.
We couldn't afford to deal with Hendricks County. We have five children. We didn't have money flow. We had a set amount of dollars that we could spend and a set amount of dollars that we could apply for a loan for and hopefully be able to buy a commercial property. And the only way we could do that was if we did it here in Clayton. There were just too many fees, too much red tape, and it would have been strung out far too long, and we financially could not have sustained ourselves in that interim period, so.
And that's another good
Right.
personal story to document and explain. And I think those are all things that we can use as benefits.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, you don't have to use that, cause I mean, mine's about a paragraph long, but it's just, if you take the time to thoroughly explain why we would like to do this and what those benefits are, I guess, cause me, I'm just, well, the benefits are I get to deal with the zoning guy here, get to come in and talk to you. And ask you a question, or come to the town council, because you're sitting on the town council, you get to come into the town council and ask a question. Versus trying to cut through the red tape, or not even red tape. Okay, like the whole deal, I hadn't been to a town council meeting in a long, long time, a couple years ago, or however long that was. I didn't know you had to sign a little yellow notepad if you wanted to ask the town council a question, because they used to open the floor up to the town, the people of the town, for questions, comments, or concerns. I feel that's a good idea. I don't know if it's changed. I haven't been to a meeting lately, but I think it's a good idea because that's how you get the town's input. Yeah, you're always going to get that guy that's always wanting to talk about a certain issue that's bugging him. He's talked about it for 50 years and he's always going to talk about it. I get it. Nobody wants to hear it because we've heard it for 50 years, but whatever. I think I don't know where I was going with that, but my point was I was coming in to talk to you guys. I didn't know you had to sign in, so I had to wait till after the meeting to ask a question. And here, I think we need to be a little more open to people, I guess, is where I'm going with that. I lost my train of thought, sorry, but you know what I mean. If people knew the benefits, they could talk to us. Is where I was going with that. They knew they could come in and talk to us, then and have more of that one-on-one and understanding of things. It would benefit them to be in the town that way. Sorry, my brain. I was thinking something right in the middle of the sentence.
Alright, so at least we have a few
Yeah, we've got
things
some
down of
idea.
what our priorities are gonna be this year. We have a public hearing that we're gonna do on February 2nd. Deb's gonna get me the template on what to submit to the Republican
Yep.
for our public notice. And then the UDO is in what used to be Dan's office, so they can come in and inspect the UDO for 10 days prior to our meeting. And so anything else for,
I don't know. I think we covered a lot more than I expected to tonight.
okay. Thank you, Deb, for
Yes.
being here to help.
You're welcome. And the town council wants me on board as well, so.
Okay.
Does anybody got any questions or comments? I'll call this meeting adjourned.